Hello, my name is John Paul Diaz, and I am a junior at Grand Canyon University, majoring in marketing and minoring in business management. Today, I'm going to be presenting my contemporary business leader presentation for organizational behavior and management 420. A little overview about what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. I'm going to be describing a leader, the leader's greatest career achievement, how they've handled a challenge, an impact of behavior, a mission, vision, strategy, and the entrepreneurial mindset, application of leadership theory, leadership comparison, leadership lessons, and critical reflection. John Murdy is the creative director and executive producer of Halloween Horror Nights for Universal Studios Hollywood, and he has been working in this role for about 20 years. John started working for Universal since 1989, right after graduating college as a theater major. He started off working as a tour guide at the studio tour, and a few years after, he got an interview to work as a production assistant during the beginning of the theme park's lower lot expansion. When John got hired to work for Universal Creative, he left the company for 5 years to work for an outside firm responsible for a lot of projects with Universal, leading him to return to the company in 1996. John was rehired as a writer, working his way up to creative director for Universal Creative. John began creating rides and shows for the Universal Studios theme parks all around the world, but primarily ended up working at Hollywood. Shortly after, John got a call offering him the opportunity to bring back Halloween Horror Nights to Hollywood. John's greatest career achievement. Most of John's greatest achievements are more personal than professional. The whole reason why John arrived at Universal was because he was obsessed with the Universal classic monsters since he was 4 years old. He has so much love for the monsters, and at his time, there wasn't a lot of classic monsters content in the theme park. Although some of these characters are turning 100 years old, like Frankenstein, they are still popular horror icons to this day. In 2018, John Murdy brought the Universal Classic Monsters to Halloween Horror Nights as a haunted maze experience, illustrating his vision and making the monsters appeal to modern-day horror. The maze was the highest rated attraction of that year, which was unbelievable for John considering all the contemporary properties that it was up against. The success of the Universal Monsters has led to 6 different experiences with these characters. Handling a challenge. John's biggest challenge was his decision to leave Universal Creative, where he achieved what he dreamed of as a kid, to design theme park rides. This was a daunting challenge for John because at the time, the park wasn't doing Halloween Horror Nights. It started in Hollywood as far back as the 80s, but it had a history where the event was done, then it would go dormant for another few years. By the time John brought it back, it had been 5 years since the park had done the event, and in a theme park industry like Universal, that's an eternity. The reason for this is because Los Angeles is the most competitive market in the world for haunt events. For John to produce an event at Universal, John was gambling his entire career on the opportunity. However, John had a very specific vision that he thought would work, and as time went by, it did. His vision was to bring movies to life, leading to licensing films, TV shows, music artists, and video games. Not everyone can just create a haunted house, an original story, or direct an event like Halloween Horror Nights. John embodies transformational leadership by inspiring creativity, motivating his team, connecting with fans, and pushing the limits of horror-themed attractions. However, John isn't the only person who transforms his horror icons into experiences. The event uses set designers, scare actors, technicians, and IP holders to bring John's creative vision to life. John actively interacts with his fans, mentioning that he is always willing to work with college students on presentations like these. Mission, vision, strategy, and the entrepreneurial mindset. One of the strategies that John mentioned during the interview is to stay true to what you do. In 2007, John went to New Line Studios asking for a licensing deal for Friday the 13th, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. The way John pitched the concept is the same way he pitches it today. Guests should feel as if they are walking through a screen, living the horror movie where the villain is now coming for you. Everything John and his team does uses a moving quality attention to detail, the props, sets, makeup, costumes, audio, and even the lighting. All the details have to be executed as if they were doing a film. John also mentioned they have to be flexible because any genre of film can change over time. John started off by bringing to life slashers like Freddy Krueger, Jason, Leatherface, Michael Myers, which were based on films that had come out during the last century. After bringing them to life multiple times, it was time to broaden what the event could be, partnering with TV shows like The Walking Dead and Stranger Things. He also looked to musicians that had a horror connection like Alice Cooper, Black Sabbath, and in the past year, The Weeknd. In recent years, John collaborated with video game properties like Naughty Dog's The Last of Us. Even though there's a core vision that one tries to execute, you always have to be flexible because the genre of horror is constantly changing, and Halloween Horror Nights has to evolve with them to appeal to the next generation of fans. One leadership approach that John Murdy demonstrated during our interview was the trait approach. John Murdy's personal traits are the necessary qualities to make an effective haunt event like Halloween Horror Nights. John uses his visions to create haunted houses, which is something he has been good at since 1977, when he created haunted houses in his parents' backyard. John was always passionate about creating guest experiences for theme parks, live shows, and now haunted houses and scare zones. John adapts to challenges and problem solves efficiently, as sometimes things don't work out according to plan, and mazes have to be scrapped or rethemed at the last minute. The trait approach is a leadership approach John can relate to throughout his career and allows us to understand how much John really loves what he is doing. Leadership style comparison. Jean-Paul Rains was the CEO of GameStop from 2010 through 2017. I can compare him to John Murdy because both leaders release something to the public that puts consumers into the positions of the video game characters. Rains played a major role in the shift from digital video games to physical ones, which led to competition between many online retailers like Amazon. One of Rains' strengths came from his strategic vision to adapt and innovate the video games in a changing market. A weakness of his was struggling to fully pivot to digital, as his hesitation contributed to the company's struggles in adapting to the changes in the industry. Both Johns have been responsible for working with video games, as we have seen this come to life at Halloween Horror Nights through Silent Hill in 2012 and The Last of Us in 2023. Like Rains, John Murdy's role requires him to compete against many other SoCal haunt events, like Knott's Scary Farm, Six Flags Fright Fest, and the Queen Mary's Dark Harbor. Murdy's weakness is to come from repeated contemporary properties over the years, including The Walking Dead 9 years in a row and the Universal Monsters 6 years in a row. Leadership lessons. Despite complications over the years, John wishes that he had paid more attention to business while he was in college. John stated that creative people don't want to deal with business because they have their vision that they want to execute perfectly. In the earlier part of his career, the idea that John was going into business wasn't at the top of his mind at all. In reality, Halloween Horror Nights is a business, because if the business doesn't succeed, you won't be able to do what you do as an artist. John also stated that learning about marketing is really important, as marketing is everywhere, and he's come to learn that from the beginning. There are still many properties John wishes to bring to the event, but the reason he hasn't done them is because they don't have the appeal that would play for such a wide audience. Learning to think and evaluate potential properties as a marketer and a creative person was a skill John had to learn as he went along. Critical reflection of the interview and research processes. I chose John Murdy as the person I would interview because I previously worked for him as a scare actor at Halloween Horror Nights 2024. Halloween Horror Nights has always been an event I've looked up to ever since I was 9, and I am proud to say that working at the event was one of the greatest accomplishments I have ever done. I chose to compare John Murdy with Jean-Paul Rains because Rains also worked to deliver many immersive video games to consumers, some of them being properties, as mentioned, that have come to the event in the past. When John first accepted to do this interview, I was worried that he would not have a good impression of me. I was worried I was going to get too nervous and maybe make things awkward, as he is a really important person who I have always looked up to. In the end, I had the best time interviewing John. John is one of my biggest inspirations, as his work and his story has taught me to always believe in the greater outcome and to never give up on the things that we are passionate about. Halloween Horror Nights has always been an event I've wanted to be a part of, and even though my first year working there was nothing but incredible, I know that it is only the beginning of what's to come. Here is my reference slide. Here is the link to the interview video with me and John Murdy. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys have an amazing day.